Namaste. Mukshayatan Yog Sansthan welcomes you all to the fourth session of day 3 of Global Yoga Conference. For this session, we are honored to have among us Ms. Luisa Angelina Maa Prem Karuna ji from Brazil. I request our Guruji and Director of Mokshatan Yog Sansthan, Adarniya Acharya Pratishtha ji, to kindly welcome Maa Prem Karuna ji and say a few words.
Namaste Hari Om. This is the concluding session of this wonderful 4 days Global Yoga Conference. And with this session, we are coming to the end of this Global Yoga Conference. I would like to thank Ministry of Ayush for supporting this event, and I would like to thank ICCR, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, for supporting this event. I'm thankful to all of the wonderful speakers who accepted our invitation and took out time to be a part of this event of global repute. I'm grateful to Prem Karuna ji for accepting our invitation. I'm sure this session is going to bring a positive change in all of our listeners' life. Make sure that this should not be, of course, this is a concluding concluding day for this 4 days Global Yoga Conference, but make sure this should not be an end to your yogic practices. And let's pledge to make International Day of Yoga not just a one-day event, rather to adapt yoga as your lifestyle and accept yoga as an enlightening science in your life. Make sure you practice yoga abhyas every day and you live a yogic life to stay healthy and happy.
Maa Prem Karuna, since the age of 17, has been studying and practicing meditation and Hatha Yoga. In 2010, she started working as a yoga teacher and somatic therapist. She is also a biologist, MSc Ecology, specialization in ornithology and animal behavior. I request Maa Prem Karuna ji to kindly deliver her session.
Good night, everyone. Namaste. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciated the invitation to be part of this incredible conference. Today, we're going to introduce a more therapeutic view of yoga. So let's start with the question. What would you do if you could, at all times, make the best choice that would not only bring success, happiness, prosperity, and peace to you, but also to everyone around you? It's a general but very simple question to just say yes, right? I would do everything to have that. And I have to tell you that we choose daily. When we wake up, we choose the clothes we are going to wear, what we are going to have for breakfast, and always choosing means give up something, means to make choices over another. It's selecting, it's preferring. So because of that, we need to become responsible for our choices. And all the, let's say, time, the brain is looking to weigh pros and cons, looking to quantify the choices. But it doesn't always work that way. Because how are we going to quantify a career? How are we going to quantify a husband? How are we going to quantify the practice that we have as a spiritual journey? Because the choices needs to come from the heart, right? It's not from the head. And since a young age, we are encouraged not to listen our emotions, to be present in our body, to reflect on internal issues that surface and place us in restlessness, in imbalance. In short, we don't listen to ourselves. We are disconnected from ourselves. And making a comparison, like a plastic flower which cannot give us a platform, how are we going to make the best choices for ourselves if we don't even know what we want? If we don't hear what we want? So normosis direct us to follow models. We live standards of beauty, of success, of family, profession, of person. However, are we happy follow these standards? Are we happy automatically following patterns that never asked us if we really want this? Or worse, if we actually need those standards? So why do we give up our choices? So I have to tell you that we are constantly bombarded with information that comes from outside and pulls our attention, distracting us. The way we receive this information is through the five senses. And each of those senses receive hundreds or thousands of bytes of information per second. Our eyes, for example, receive 1 megabyte more information every second. That's the equivalent of reading an entire encyclopedia every minute. So the brain chooses to filter and focus on capturing information that is particularly dangerous, familiar, important to us, and that can give us pleasure or rewards. That is also unusual, interesting, or new. And it seeks to consult past experience, current feelings, the belief system that we have, the memories in general, to guess what might be going on. So in this reason, the brain seeks to give meaning to those gaps, which can often be positive kicks, but also grotesque mistakes on target. So we can understand that this is the cause of not only to misinterpret information, but also to become overwhelmed and simply unable to process all this information. And in this way, we choose which pieces this reality gives us to see. This completely changes the way we perceive lives, as we are the ones who choose to see in that way. We are really responsible for our lives and the way it goes. However, our choices are most often not conscious. They are conditioned by the mechanisms of the brain that separate lived experience into pain or pleasure. If we get reward for what we do, the brain activates the synaptic pleasure pathways, releasing, let's say, the pleasure biochemicals and making us feel physically good. If we feel threatened, rejected, or deceived, the same pathways that say we are experiencing physical pain are activated, and unfortunately, our brain doesn't know how to isolate one thing from another. Due to this mindless way we live, we are often activating reward reactions or threats in ourselves and people without realizing it. And while these reactions are unconsciously, we can say that our choices are not authentic and yes, automatic, determined by our experience and the results of these brought to us. So until we don't know how to choose differently from that, our lives reflect these difficulties, even if only in some areas. And this has been repeated. This brings the feeling of powerlessness, that we are hostage, that we are locked in the situation with fear and sadness. And all this very, very unconsciously. So the question is how to get out of this? And I'll say that is through attention directed to the goal that you want to reach. So how many times have you been talking to someone and had to ask the same thing? And worse, were you telling something, let's say, important to you, and you had to repeat the same thing 2 or 3 times? So what was missing from this conversation? Let's say attention directed at the other. So what would be directed attention? Directed attention is sustaining attention, that we also call focus, and sustaining the focus generates concentration. So to have a more, let's say, assertive and productive conversation, relationship, well-being, we have to have a minimum of attention. And if we can choose what to see, then why don't we pay attention to the areas of our lives that aren't going well? It's a good question. So now to explain that, or also to have, let's say, a way to, a direction to go, we have to talk about neuroplasticity. And I don't know if you know this term. It's our brain's ability to remodel itself through life due to new experience we go through. Whenever we learn new things, the brain neurons create a kind of a neural pathway that records this learning. This neural process is similar to the course of a river through which the water always passes to the point of forming a mark. And the more we repeat the learning and strengthen the synaptic record, the more difficult is to forget. Where learning that happened eventually to establishing weak connections between neurons are more difficult to remember. So habits are formed and strengthened in the same way. If we always do in a certain way, we will strengthen the corresponding synaptic bridges, and we will always act, feel, express in the same way. Due to the repetition of the habit, this neural bridge will not only become stronger, but the biochemical transmission that is responsible for the activation and communication between your neurons will be faster and faster, and constantly the response as well. Therefore, our reaction becomes faster and more automatic in the face of repetition. hence the difficulty of breaking the habit. That's why it's so difficult to break a habit. But the opposite is also true. Actions that are performed only once or twice and are no longer practiced do not create strong connections between neurons. Even though our brain has carved, let's say, out a new path, if we don't strengthen it, it won't be any stronger than usual. And so this new habit is not established. The result of it is that we continue with the same standard. And if we are able to sustain the new way of thinking, feeling, or acting, the old way is used less and less. And we manage to weaken the usual way. So in practice, let's say this, we are developing what some science like coaching and PNL say brain reprogramming. So it's up to us to weaken the connections that prove to be harmful and strengthen those that magnify us, lift us, and put us in line with what we want and what is really good to us. So it's possible to change, but the more attention I pay to the repetitive actions, thoughts, feelings, and emotions that make me act in a conditional way, the more I prevent the automatic action from happening. So we have the meditation practice to, let's say, help us, to save us. And having a meditation practice is essential for not only see what is not going well and therefore make the best choice for us, but also to establish a new habit. And this new habit will help us to grow in the spiritual path, in our relationship, in, let's say, every day, and all the things that we need to pass through. So I invited you to do with me, let's say, very simple breathing, which I call it 20 connected breath. It's just to bring us to a different state of mind. And after that, we're going to do a kind of mindfulness for 3 minutes, listening and bringing all our attention to the sounds, wherever you are, to the sound source, let's say this, in a way so attentive that there's no room for thoughts, okay? So this 20 connected breath is like this. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale long, exhale long. And we're gonna repeat this 4 times, okay? And just to remember you that after that, we're gonna meditate only 3 minutes to see if we are able in these 3 minutes to not think of anything, not think at all. Just be here and be aware of what you are feeling, okay? So let's do together this breath. Longer. Longer. And now just pay attention to the sound that is surrounding you, and be 100% in the sound, giving all your attention to that. So make a deep inhalation and exhalation, and slowly open your eyes or bring your attention to here. And I have some things else to tell you. So now that you are in more presence to listen what I have to tell you, let's talk about emotional intelligence, which is connected with our ability to manage all areas of life in all situations that involve them in a comprehensive, inclusive way. Listening to all parties, understanding the results of actions. This is not only achieved when we can neutrally observe everything and everyone, but also is the only faculty that allows us to broaden our perception in impartial observation. So when we acquire emotional intelligence, our presentation to social, professional, and family demands improves. We are able to communicate without friction. We gain the ability to work as a team and share ideas, accepting others' opinions, and not always wanting to be right. That it's very ego. the internal motivation that life is flowing much better, added to the enthusiasm of, let's say, people around us, doing to the, let's say, to the harmony that we create and make us more relaxed to be who we are. So in this, let's say, reflection, we also gain spontaneity, creativity, and ability to innovate. And a person who has lost, let's say, creativity at work, or even the taste for life, it's because it's not giving attention in yourself. So being in spontaneity, creativity, and innovation are, let's say, indicators that we are managing to live in presence. And the direct result of this improvement is the quality of life, and how we can also improve our physical, mental, and financial health. So the simple act of paying more attention to what we feel, we think, we act, and the consequences of this make us much better. And we eat better, we have a healthy body, we keep stable and balance, our mind also balance, we can actually have field to expand our potential and to be in harmony with all beings and do, let's say, good for all the people, and the best, let's say, the most important, to leave a virtuous legacy of peace in this world. So let's say we say that a person who has achieved that also achieve a complete health, an integral health, and it's also becoming to be an integral being, and only because it's becoming more focused. And these, as we already talked, can actually promote a radical change of perception, and this will reflect in our lives without a doubt. Okay, so just repeating, because this is very important. And in terms of emotion, being in a concentrated state can make us perceive when the rage comes. And if we observe the rage coming, we can actually slow down the emotion. And not only with the rage, with, let's say, irritation or judgment, or even, let's say, sadness, we can always slow down our emotion, and the impact is less bombastic. So the observation in emotion causes a delusion, let's say this, of the electrical charge. And because we have three, let's say, brains, we have the reptilian, the limbic, and the rational brain working at the same time. Instead of just being emotional, we can also activate the rational process and make us less emotion and reactive. So we are in this, let's say, pandemic situation where many people are very reactive. And we cannot forget that we have this tool of just observing, respecting what we are feeling through observation. It's just that. We do the 20 connected breath, and then we stop for 1 minute and we observe. And when we do that, We're going to be aware of what we feel. We're going to consider our needs. And this will bring us to a more rational state, which will also include in our decisions, in our choices, not only emotional, let's say, reactions, but also the rational thinking and also the recognition of our needs. And we need to do that because when we wait, the two qualities of perception of the situation, we can actually have discernment, the quality of viveka. And if we don't consider our needs, how are we going to give ourselves more love? How are we going to empower ourselves in a situation if we don't really understand our needs? We ask something for someone. We actually judge something because we don't really have the understanding of what we need. So I propose here an exercise which I call journalism. And you can do this with a piece of paper, and you're going to bring a situation that you feel uncomfortable, and you write on this paper without taking the pen off the paper. And you're going to talk about, let's say you're going to write about the situation or the person or the feeling or whatever is inside you that is, let's say, harmed, that is painful. And at this moment, you can accuse, you can curse, you can say whatever you want, because this is your paper, okay? And you cannot stop writing for 5 minutes. And you cannot steal, okay? Just stop after 5 minutes. Even if you don't know what you're going to read, what you're going to write, you're going to say, I don't know what I'm writing, but I'm not going to stop writing. And then the thought will come and you're going to keep, let's say, writing your feelings and the situation and everything that perhaps you never had the chance or never had the courage to say. Okay? So you do that. And after that, you close your eyes and you feel what the situation brings to you. So suppose the situation brings a lot of rage, and I'm feeling the rage, and I observe that feeling. And I give some time for me to feel that because it's a hard situation. And then I'm going to write down the emotion that comes. Fear, rage, sadness, injustice, whatever you feel, just give voice in this paper, okay? After the exercise. And after doing this exercise, you're gonna turn the page. Don't write down the same page, turn the page. And then you're gonna write again the same situation, exactly the same situation that you just wrote before. But this time, you cannot accuse, you cannot point, you cannot criticize, you cannot judge. Okay? And you're gonna also write for 5 minutes without stopping. And when you, let's say, finish this 5 minutes, you close your eyes and you feel the situation. You feel the difference between the first exercise and the second exercise. Okay? So please do that. Don't forget of doing this exercise. It's very important. You're going to have a present with that. And I'm bringing this because self-knowledge, our emotions and feelings through observations, put ourselves in the present and the moment, and we will be able to deal with the reaction, and we'll be able to understand the patterns that sabotage us and bring negative consequences to our lives, because this is what we want. We want to eliminate, let's say, these things that, let's say, doesn't allow us to flow. So simply putting the mind in the present, let's say in the emotion of the present, in that very moment, or after, minutes after, but not forgetting to just putting the mind there, will clarify what impedes our success, what happens that we don't have good relationships, what happens that block our purpose, life purpose, or prosperity, what is really going on that I see my friends, I see people around the world being happy, but I'm not. So all this, we have to give attention, and we have to look for the causes, and we have to start understanding what are my choices, what actually I am giving attention to, what are my attention directed, and also what are the understanding or the meanings I'm giving to some areas of my lives. So I have to ask you, what do you want for your life? You're also going to write that. It's all an exercise of self-knowledge in practice. So please put everything that is important to you in what you want to accomplish, whether material, intellectually, or spiritually. Don't judge, just put that. Okay? And you're also gonna ask to yourself, what is success to me? Again, don't be succinct. Describe what success means to you in all areas of your life. You can also dream, because, you know, it's your life, it's your success. And then you're gonna ask, how do I feel about myself? Do I have a good opinion of me? Do I think I'm competent? Do I think I worth? Do I love myself? You know, so how I see myself, and how do I feel about myself? And what I perceive as success, it's in line with what I want. Because if it's not, how am I going to get there? Do you understand? If I want to be a yoga teacher, but I don't think this as a success, how am I going to become a yoga teacher? I'll never become a yoga teacher. So you're going to do that. You're going to write to see if you are in a coherent, you know, if your mind is aligned with your heart. This is what I want to say. And you're also going to ask yourself, is what I see about myself is in line with what I understand about success? So for example, if I see myself capable of being a great, let's say, manager, and what I see as a success is managing a great company. So it's just, again, what I feel is in line with what I think and what I want. Because if it's not, how am I going to get there? Okay? So from this point, we would enter in the situations of your life that, let's say, blocks your alignment. And we would go through the episodes that happened in childhood that brought trauma and that were responsible for your belief system that in turn determines your thoughts, your behaviors, your choices and actions. So I'm saying this, although I don't have time to deepen in that, is because if we want a deep reform in our lives for the better, we have to look to that which is hurting, which is resentful. We have to look at our fears. We have to look at our guilt. We have to look for the shame, the sadness, and all the feelings that prevent us to access our potential. And because of that, we are not being present. And because that, we are not choosing right. And because that, we are living automatically. So I, let's say, put this seed to you to go through this self-investigation. And again, I appreciate the time we had here. I hope I had shed some light on this, let's say, transformation through self-knowledge, through observation of what you feel and think. If you want to get in touch, you can write me. I'm gonna say my Instagram, which is, let's say, easier to you to find me, is at Maa with 2 A's, yoga, _ Karuna. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be with you all. I hope you have, let's say, beautiful lectures that will touch the heart in this conference. Thank you so much. Namaste.